morning and welcome back. I would like to thank everyone for joining us here today. I hope everyone has had a great summer vacation and is ready to start this new school year. I have had the opportunity to introduce myself to some of you as you were participating in summer workshops and over the past few days as you were setting up your classrooms for the new school year. For those of you who have not gotten a chance to meet, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Tina Barkas, and I am your new assistant principal here at Suburban Middle School. Prior to joining your school community, I did have the opportunity of teaching ESL to 8th and 9th graders over the past 6 years, and to 1st and 2nd graders over the past 7 years in our district summer program. I also taught ESL to some of my students' parents in the evenings through our community programs, which was a great experience in itself. In addition to teaching, I also represented the teachers in the foreign language department in our faculty council meetings and worked alongside with my supervisor to create the ESL curriculum for both middle and junior high school. As a teacher, I had a wonderful philosophy that helped to really guide my teaching practices, and today I would just like to share a few words of my philosophy just to give everyone a better understanding of who I am as a teacher and what I have to bring to the table as an administrator. Throughout the previous school year, our staff spent a lot of time going over the Danielson model in order to make everyone comfortable when we begin implementing it during the school year. We will therefore be focusing on 4 domains mentioned in the model, which are planning and preparation, the classroom environment, instruction, and professional responsibilities. During the first few days of school, the principal and I will stop by to meet and greet each of you and your students. This year's observations will consist of 3 components: pre-observations, observations, and post-conferences, which will allow us an opportunity to reflect on what occurred throughout your lesson. We will also be coming by to visit you in unannounced walkthroughs, where we will sit in for only a portion of your class. The amount of observations will vary depending on whether or not each of you are tenured. For those non-tenured, formal observations will begin in September, second observations will be in December, and the third round of observations will either be in February or in March. In between observations, we will have a conference, and our final evaluation will conclude in April. The path is a little different for tenured teachers, but each of you will have at least one formal evaluation and will also be a part of our walkthrough procedures. 10 principles of learning that we would like to see applied to your classroom are as follows. The first principle is to create a respectful classroom environment. Our second principle is to celebrate diversity and promote social and emotional development of the students. The third principle is to create an environment that lowers anxiety and fosters learning. The fourth principle is to define clear objectives and allow for appropriate pacing in the curriculum. The fifth principle is to incorporate 21st century themes and skills and technology. The sixth principle is to create student-centered lessons. Our seventh principle is to provide each student with an opportunity to excel to their fullest potential, which includes modifying assignments for our students. Our eighth principle is to promote critical thinking in your lesson planning. The ninth principle is to construct authentic formative and summative assessments. And our final principle is to provide appropriate feedback and time for reflection on personal and student goals. The first principle that I would like to talk about is respect. Respect is important because it contributes to a context of safety, openness, and reflection. This context is crucial for the brain to effectively process and encode academic material, as opposed to being preoccupied with emotional concerns. In the world in which children find themselves today, understanding and appreciating those with whom you attend school, learn, and play makes for a much richer living and learning experience. It also expands horizons and breaks down traditional barriers. Let's face it, we must take into consideration that the students are influenced by many outlets and that the values they hold are shaped by their parents, peers, television, music, and other external sources. If this is so, then children bring with them a wide range of behaviors to the classroom, and it is up to the teacher to shape these behaviors appropriately to match what is expected in school. We also find ourselves working in schools with populations that are very different from what we encountered when we were growing up. Teachers need to be well-read, open to new people and cultural experiences, as well as reflective. They must approach situations from a base of knowledge and understanding. When we understand the community surrounding the school and the demands on the lives of the children we teach, we will be more respectful of the burdens some children face each day. In a respectful classroom, students feel physically and emotionally safe and valued for whom they are. Well, what should we do in our classrooms? You might be thinking this question. Well, there are several approaches that we can take to making sure that our classrooms provide a respectful environment for our children. We should respond immediately to disrespect and send a firm message that we will not tolerate or accept disrespect in our schools. Interrupt incidents of degrading language. Be models for the children. Children should know that all of the children and adults in the classroom are valued and appreciated. Be polite to students, parents, and adults in the community. Set the tone for tolerance and acceptance of people, behavior, and ideas. Work effectively with all students regardless of ability. The benefits of a respectful environment include a respectful environment decreases the fear of the unknown and unexplored. Children in such a classroom are encouraged to get to know each other and know about others, share ideas, explore new content, and carry this out with the feeling of safety and appreciation. Being a former teacher, I will always keep in mind teachers who feel appreciated, connected, and energized by their colleagues bring out the best in their students. Respected adults engage in respectful interactions in which respectful students can blossom. Well, what can you expect from me? I'm going to create an Apple Award, which one teacher offers to another teacher each month. A teacher might, for example, recognize someone who was courageous enough to ask for support. We will also be picking 2 names at a staff meeting and encourage staff members to either write a note of appreciation or make a positive comment about those selected. We will hold an appreciation day twice each year, and the students will write a note to anyone in the school who's made a difference in their lives. I will also be spending a small part of our budget for staff outings and development, such as interesting conferences, fun team building retreats, and creativity workshops. Remember, if teachers aren't happy, no one will be happy, and I will always keep this in mind. Once we develop an understanding of respect and what respect is and looks like in the classroom, it'll be easier to include the second principle of effective teaching into your classroom, which is promoting social and emotional learning through the appreciation of diversity. Coming from an ESL background, I am more than familiar with the role that diversity plays in our classroom. If you wish to research this topic further, I would suggest reading the article Teaching to Diversity, Creating Compassionate Learning Communities for Diverse Elementary Schools. With the recent laws protecting kids from bullying, it is our responsibility as educators to help our students to accept and appreciate diversity. Around the world, children of the same age enter today's classrooms with differing learning strengths and challenges, background knowledge, cultures, languages, and experience. Students do not learn alone, but rather in diverse communities, interacting with their teachers in the company of their peers and bringing with them the values and teachings of their families. Howard Gardner spawned a regular education reform movement that includes many of the teaching philosophies and techniques and assessment methods found to be effective for developing social and emotional learning and positive classroom climates. Two of the intelligences posited by Gardner are social and emotional constructs, interpersonal intelligence and intrapersonal intelligence. We therefore expect that social and emotional learning take place in the classroom. Well, what is social and emotional learning? SEL is defined as the process of acquiring and effectively applying the knowledge, attitudes, and skills necessary to recognize and manage emotions, developing caring and concern for others, making responsible decisions, establishing positive relationships, and handling challenges, situations capably. This can be done by increasing self and social awareness and also by increasing a student's self and social respect. In your classroom, we will be looking for lessons where specific skills such as self-awareness, self-respect, empathy, perspective-taking, and cooperation are addressed. The benefits of SEL are endless. SEL has positive effects on many aspects of children's development, including academic performance, physical, mental, and emotional health. Developing self-awareness and respect helps students understand their unique learning profile. This allows students to become aware of how they learn best and see their strengths and what they can contribute. The third principle we will be looking for as we observe you this year is your ability to create a low anxiety environment that fosters learning. A well-facilitated classroom offers students a safe context in which to develop productive ways of managing their anxiety by actively experimenting with new ways to deal with the unfamiliar. The fact that some class events will elicit anxiety from both students and instructors is a given. However, when anxiety passes a certain threshold, it begins to interfere with the learning process. Sir Giovanni states, "The tone should be, I won't threaten you, but I expect much of you." According to Stephen Krashen's foreign language acquisition theory, Krashen claims that learners with high motivation, self-confidence, and a good self-image, and a low level of anxiety are better equipped for success. On the other hand, low motivation, low self-esteem, and debilitating anxiety can combine to raise the child's affective filter and form a mental block that prevents comprehensible input from being used for acquisition. Teachers must create a low anxiety environment. Simple strategies like greeting your students at the door and assessing them on academic knowledge they were previously exposed to can help to lower anxiety and increase participation. Teachers can also use corrective feedback strategies for error correction rather than explicitly telling the students that they made an error. Journal writing is also an excellent way to help students bring their attitudes and feelings out in the open. With math journal writing, for example, students can reflect on their experiences with particular activities. They can write about what they learned and whether they felt successful. Teachers must value the student's method of thinking and respect the student's personal frame of reference. They need to listen to students' questions. Listening, valuing, and respecting will create an atmosphere in which the students feel more willing to take risks and to justify their answers. The fourth principle of learning involves defining clear objectives and allowing for appropriate pacing in the curriculum. Everyone is expected to be familiar with the mastery skills list for the grade and subject levels that they teach. Share the mastery skills list for each unit with parents and students. The essential questions serve as a guide for enduring understanding. We expect that essential questions should be visible in your classroom and in your lesson plans for each unit of study. Students should be well aware of what the learning objectives are. They should also know what they should be able to do in order to excel in each unit. Academic expectations should be posted as a reference to remind students of the learning expectations in the same way classroom rules are displayed. For example, if you have established a requirement that each student is to read 25 books, it should be posted to serve as a reminder of the reading expectations. Student learning should not be a guessing game. If performance expectations are very clearly defined, students know exactly what the criteria is for high quality work. It is also more likely that if they understand the criteria, they will produce high quality work. Rubrics, criteria charts, and models of what teachers consider quality work help communicate expectations to students, and they should be posted and available for student use. Although the curriculum must be followed to ensure that the yearly objectives are met, it is important that we allow appropriate time for students to understand the information. There is plenty of room for you to add your own materials and modify assignments for your students. I look forward to seeing how each of you bring the curriculum to life in your classroom. The next principle that we would like to see applied in your classroom practice is addressing the skills that 21st century learners need to become successful members of today's society. Let's face it, the world we live in has changed drastically over the past century, and our teaching practices must change to fit the needs of this rapidly changing society. Globalization, economic necessity, and low civic engagement compound the urgency for students to develop the skills and knowledge they need for success. To be competent in our global economy, ecosystem, and political networks, students need to learn to communicate, collaborate, and problem solve with people worldwide. In order to be successful in their careers, students must learn how to think critically and have strong communication skills. Research conducted with businesses says that for students to be successful, they need the following skills: critical thinking and problem solving, collaboration and leadership, agility and adaptability, initiative and entrepreneurship, effective oral and written communication, accessing and analyzing information, and curiosity and imagination. By requiring students to learn through textbooks, students can learn information, but they do not have much practice applying the knowledge to new contexts. Therefore, transmission is not the most effective way to teach 21st century skills. I have 9 suggestions. The first suggestion is make it relevant. To be effective, make lessons relevant to the students' lives. Topics are clearer to students when they understand how it fits within the big picture. 2. Teach through the disciplines. In addition to learning the knowledge of the subject, students also must learn the skills associated with the production of knowledge within the discipline. For example, through scientific studies, students should learn why science is relevant and what problems they can solve using the scientific method. Number 3, develop thinking skills. Students can and should develop lower and higher order thinking skills. 4, encourage learning transfer. Students must apply the skills and knowledge they gain in one discipline to another and what they learn in one school to other areas of their lives. 5, teach students how to learn. Reinforce students' metacognition. Talk through your own thinking as you address an example problem, and then ask students to reflect on the model. Number 6, address misunderstandings directly. Learners have many misunderstandings about how the world really works, and they hold on to the misconceptions until they have an opportunity to build alternate explanations based on experiences. 7, treat teamwork like an outcome. Design instruction in ways so students learn from one another, developing their ability to work in teams. 8, exploit technology to support the learning process. Technology also offers the potential to develop students' 21st century skills by providing them with new ways to develop their problem solving, critical thinking, and communication skills. Technology can help students practice transferring those skills to different contexts. It helps them reflect on thinking and that of their peers, practice addressing their misunderstandings, and it helps to collaborate with peers. Number 9, foster creativity. Creativity sparks innovations that can create jobs, address challenges, and motivate social and individual progress. I'm really looking forward to seeing innovative ways in which you can help your students develop 21st century skills by making learning meaningful and connecting it to their lives. It is through these skills that our students will become successful in today's job force. The sixth principle we will be looking for when we enter your classrooms is creating student-centered lessons. Research shows that students are not empty vessels that need to be filled with information. They must acquire knowledge actively. Sir Giovanni states, in order for knowledge to be understood and used, students must be involved in its active construction. This means not just telling and explaining, but also providing students with opportunities to answer questions, to discuss and debate meanings and implications, and also to engage in an authentic problem solving in real context. In student-centered learning, the teacher takes more of an active role in learning rather than being the person in the center of knowledge. The student, rather than being passive, takes a role in the application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation processes. In learning, the factor of place is everywhere where learning takes place. The time factor shows differences with respect to the learning activity. In addition, in student-centered learning, technology is used in such a way that it realizes teacher-student and student-teacher interaction. Student-centered learning allows us to see the strengths in each student, and it provides a challenge for them in a non-threatening environment. Student-centered learning also leads to a higher self-esteem, better communication skills, and helps unify students in the diverse, multicultural society they live in. When creating student-centered lessons, please keep in mind to use authentic context and authentic activities and assessments. Provide modeling of processes and scaffolding. Give them access to multiple roles and perspectives. Allow time for collaborative group activities that allow students with multiple ranges of abilities to feel successful. Create opportunities for articulation and reflection, and use graphic organizers. The governing practical metaphor of the school should be student as worker, rather than the more familiar metaphor of teacher as deliverer. A prominent pedagogy will be coaching to provoke students to learn how to learn, and thus to teach themselves. We have such a diverse population in our school, and it is important to recognize that every student is capable of learning. It is also just as important to have high expectations for all of our students. I would like to stress the importance of modifying our lessons to include all students, whether they have an IEP, are an English language learner, or have a disability. As the school year begins, it is required that all teachers sign off on IEPs and understand any modification that needs to be made for the students who are part of our classroom. During our next faculty meeting, our ESL teacher will identify modifications to be used with our English language learners. It is important to note that these modifications proposed are not merely suggestions. We are required by law to ensure that all students receive an equal opportunity to learn. With that being said, I would also like to talk about the next principle that we would like to see reflected in your classroom, which is to provide each student with an opportunity to excel to their fullest potential through modifications. Howard Gardner proposed the theory of multiple intelligences. Gardner says that the differences challenge an educational system that assumes that everyone can learn the same materials in the same way, and that a uniform, universal measure suffices to test student learning. Indeed, as currently constituted, our educational system is heavily biased towards linguistic modes of instruction and assessment, and to a somewhat lesser degree towards logical, quantitative modes as well. Please keep this in mind and create lessons that provide activities that incorporate the different intelligences that our students have. The naturalist intelligence, musical intelligence, logical, mathematical intelligence, existential intelligence, interpersonal intelligence, bodily kinesthetic intelligence, linguistic intelligence, interpersonal intelligence, and spatial intelligence. Remember, effective instruction is seen as the teacher's ability to use various ways of teaching according to a variety of learning goals and student styles. Much focus on creating lessons relevant to the needs of 21st century learners has been on helping students to think critically and learn to solve problems in both individual and a group setting. It is crucial that when designing our lessons, we are setting objectives that derive from the higher order thinking processes on Bloom's taxonomy. By looking at Bloom's taxonomy, we can ensure that our students are completing tasks that require them to think critically, which in turn helps engage our learners. The seventh principle that both the principal and I would like to see in your classrooms was modifying to help engage all learners. I am now providing everyone with a handout that incorporates different activities that consider both the higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy and groups each task based on the multiple intelligences of Howard Gardner. I hope this will help to give some of you new ideas of how to incorporate both Bloom's taxonomy and your students' multiple intelligences into your lessons. Remember, if you need any more advice, both the principal and I are always available to meet with you, and we will discuss this in further detail when I attend your faculty departments this month. The ninth principle that I would like to address is including both formative and summative assessment in our planning. It is through assessments that we are able to get a true understanding of what our students know, and it provides us with an opportunity to adjust our teaching to ensure that students are mastering the skills and concepts that we intended for them to. It is important to incorporate both formative and summative assessment into your planning. During our curriculum writing sessions, many of you decided upon formative and summative assessments that you will be using with your students. Remember, the formative and summative assessments that are in the curriculum are a minimum of what should be done. Each teacher should be assessing his or her students on a daily basis. Assessment must be considered an ongoing part of teaching and should be consistent with the curriculum. Assessments should be authentic, and teachers should assess students through meaningful activities that are relevant to them. Criteria and goal setting with students engages them in instruction and the learning process by creating clear expectations. In order to be successful, students need to understand and know the learning target and goal and the criteria for reaching it. Observations assist teachers in gathering evidence of student learning to inform instructional planning. This evidence can be recorded and used as feedback for students about their learning. Questioning strategies. If you're asking better questions, it allows for an opportunity for deeper thinking and provides teachers with significant insight into the degree and depth of understanding. Self and peer assessments help to create a learning community within a classroom. Students who can reflect while engaged in metacognitive thinking are involved in their learning. Student record keeping helps students better understand their own learning as evidenced by their classroom work. Summative assessments are also given periodically to determine at a particular point in time what students know and do not know. Summative assessment at the district classroom level is an accountability measure that is generally used as part of the grading process. Summative assessments are tools to help evaluate the effectiveness of programs. As mentioned in our previous principle, we expect that summative assessment be modified and vary to include the needs of all learners in our classroom. The final principle we are going to talk about today is to provide effective feedback and time for reflection. Feedback is effective only if it helps the student improve their work. Effective feedback shows students something about their work that they might not have noticed themselves, but that they understand in terms of how it fits with what they are trying to learn and accomplish. Effective feedback must be timely. It must also focus on one or more strengths and at least one suggestion for a next step. Effective feedback is descriptive, not judgmental. Effective feedback compares work with criteria. Students should know the criteria for good work before they begin an assignment. Effective feedback is also positive, clear, and specific. Clear means clear to the student. If a student doesn't understand what you mean, the feedback cannot be effective. When feedback is provided, please give the students an opportunity to reflect on the feedback. The same way that we will reflect on your teaching practices during our post-observation conferences is similar to the ways in which students need time to reflect on the feedback given. The students must become active participants in the learning process. A great way to get the students to reflect is through journal writing. Writing in their journals helps students focus on their solutions and reflect on their own thinking. It is by thinking and reflecting on their thinking that students improve thinking skills. Reflection helps students project their concrete experiences to more abstract mental representations. Students learn to evaluate their own approaches and begin to clarify their thinking. I would like to thank everyone for their time today, and I look forward to working with each of you during this new school year.